welcome or welcome back to BookTube with Amy. This is going to be my most recent weekly wrap up. So I'm taking part in Indie August this year for the first time, which I am very excited about. And my plan is to make at least 3/4 of my reading this month indie. There are a couple of books that I'll need to read that I'll only be able to not read, hence why I need to read them. So, and they won't be indie, so I obviously need to read my Suki Stackhouse novel. I have borrowed a book from a friend at work, and so I need to get that read so that I can return it to them. And then there's another couple that I would just like to get to this month, potentially a self-destruct book maybe. So I'm trying to make 3/4 of my reading indie is what I am trying to get at, in a very long-winded way. So that is the plans. So out of the books that I've read this week, 2 out of 3 are indie, which is not a bad ratio at all. So let's jump into chatting about. So the first book I read was Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. Eagle-eyed viewers will remember that I got this in my 500 subscriber celebration as a reward for shot and pickle juice. So going into this book, it was already a very anticipated release because this particular copy is now out of print and circulation. It's really difficult to get your hands on because Eric LaRocca is actually reprinting this with a collection of other short stories, but I wanted that particular cover because I'm fussy, and that matches other covers that he has designed and released, and I wanted them to match basically. So that's where I was. So it was already very anticipated, but then the fact I had to drink pickle juice to get the book, I was like, see if I read it and it's garbage, like I'm gonna be raging. But thankfully it wasn't. So we basically have our two main characters, and one of them is selling an antique apple peeler and the other is looking to purchase an antique apple peeler, and they meet through this messaging site which is designed for queer people, and they meet through that and they form like a bit of a trust right away and a wee bit of an unlikely friendship, which then leads them to taking their chat off of these message boards on the instant messenger and leads to them entering into a sadomasochist relationship. This was a really great read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This book is very polarising. I feel like loads of people either really enjoy it or they're like, what the fuck did I read? I was in the I really enjoyed it camp. I feel like I could have read a full-length novel for these two women's relationships. If I had any criticism about the book, is that it wasn't long enough for me, because I found their relationship and their dynamic to be just really intriguing and really interesting. I liked the build up, I liked the suspense, I liked the no knowing what was going to happen next and what they would push each other to do. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that this is one of the most thought-provoking pieces of horror literature that I've read so far this year. There's a lot of social commentary in here around what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a mum, and I just really enjoyed that. That is always a subject that I find personally fascinating and something that I really enjoy, and I've seen it portrayed a lot in sort of thriller or literary fiction. I've never really seen that portrayed in horror. So I really enjoyed it. It was a 5-star read for me. With it being such a short book, I feel like I can't talk to you about the plot at all, because if I was to tell you anything, like I would give the entire premise of the book away, and it's better to go into this knowing as little as possible, I feel, because it goes from 0 to 100 so quickly that, like, if I was to tell you things, like, you'd defo see them coming, and I didn't see any of it coming, but it makes total sense for the character. And I've spoke about this a lot, like I am fine for things taking a really weird, surrealist or disturbingly gross turn, as long as I feel like it makes sense for the characters. And I feel like in this book it 1000% made sense for the characters, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was a 5-star read for me. Nobody's shocked, nobody's surprised. I loved a horror book. I mean, I feel like indie horror is just really my jam. Like, I feel like I read and review far more indie horror than I do mainstream horror at this stage, because like it is banger after banger at this point, and I am loving it. And speaking of indie horror, the next book that I read was also indie horror. So then I read The Final Woman by Pardeep Ojala, and Pardeep contacted me through my email address to see if I wanted a copy of this book to review, and I looked up the premise. He sent me a wee bit about it, but also looked it up, and it just sounded like a me book, so 1000% said aye, and he sent me a e-arc copy to review, which I was buzzing about. So the book opens, setting the scene with our typical college, high school students sitting around the campfire at a local, supposedly haunted camp where people have been murdered by a lunatic, telling creepy stories and drinking and sneaking off to have sex. And then, one by one, they start getting picked off, which is just perfection, is it no? So we have our original final girl who makes it away, and we jump forward a whole bunch of years and we now get it from her perspective as an adult who is dealing with the trauma that happened to her, and dealing with, I guess, the fame or infamy that came with her being a final girl. She has written a book based on her experiences, and she reached out to loads of other survivors and victims to see if they wanted to be part of this book, and they said, hell nah, we want to move on, want nothing to do with it, don't ever contact me again, please. But the camp's set to reopen, and people have already started going missing before it reopens. So she takes it upon herself to decide to get a ragtag group of survivor slash final women together to take down the evil that was the person who did this to them. That is just a great premise for a book. Like, I know that there was a whole spate of final girl books that were out. I think like Riley Sager did one. I know that Grady Hendrix did the Final Girls support group. I feel like there were other ones as well by popular authors who knew for the life of me I can't remember. Apparently that was just like a trendy wee trope in horror for a wee 20 minutes there, but I like it nonetheless. It is a trope that I thoroughly enjoy. It's a trope that I enjoy in my 80s slasher films, and therefore it's a trope that I enjoy in my 80ish slasher books. This was a really great time, and considering this was an indie author, I did find myself drawing so many parallels between this book and the Final Girls support group by Grady Hendrix. Now, there is, like, I guess some crossover in plot, because like they're dealing with similar subject matter, but I also found the writing as well to be sort of a Grady Hendrix-esque, and I'm not meaning that in a bad way. Like, I am not trying to say that this guy has plagiarised Grady Hendrix, because he really hasn't. There was twists and turns in The Final Woman that you didn't find in the Final Girls support group, but I just think that it's great that there's an indie author out there who is doing something similar, like, and I just think that that is a high compliment to compare somebody's writing and somebody's work to somebody that a lot of people really love and really respect. And so I kept finding myself drawing parallels. I didn't think that that was a bad thing, and I think that The Final Woman is definitely its own unique take on the final girl trope, and a really great novel. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very bingeable. I found the characters to be very believable and very relatable. Our main character, like, doesn't always get it right. She is a bit of a lovable fuck up at times, and sometimes she makes decisions and I was just like, what are you doing? Like, do you see how your actions affect people? But like, I was still rooting for her. I'm obviously not going to say too much plot wise because I didn't want to spoil it, because I would encourage people to pick this up and support an indie author. It was really great. It was a 4-star for me. It didn't quite clinch the 5, but it still was a great enjoyable read. I will definitely be checking to see if I can get a paperback copy of this, because if I can, I want it for my shelf. I enjoyed it that much. We know I am like a book hoarder, so I will need a physical copy if I am able to get my hands on one. I really did enjoy it, and I would recommend it to anybody who does like horror, specifically slasher horror, because like I say, everybody's sort of getting picked off one by one, and I don't know why, but I eat that shit up. Like, it is my fave. So thank you very much, Pardeep, for an absolutely phenomenal book. And then the next book that I read, well, actually listened to, was the first audiobook that I had ever received for NetGalley, and it was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Madana. So, funny story, I saw this book on NetGalley and I clicked into it because the cover was stunning. And I was like, that sounds like a me book, or the back. And I was going to request it, but then life happened and I forgot to. And so then, like, a day or so later, I was lying in bed and I was like, oh, let's go on NetGalley request that book. And it wasn't there anymore. Wasn't available to request, right? But could I, for the life of me, remember the name of it? Because I was super interested in reading it, so I was going to, like, pre-order it or add it to my Amazon wish list or something. And I was like, right, I don't remember what it was called, but I remember it was about witches, and I remember, like, the cover was blue. And, like, it looked like a bit of like a cosy witchy book, which has apparently been what I have wanted to read this year. And so I was just like laying in bed for 40 minutes straight while me and Simon were supposed to be reading, and me being like, new supernatural witchy releases, new witch books blue cover, new witch books car on cover, witch book gate, like blue witch book. It was too far, right? But eventually, with enough digging, I found it. And then after adding it to my Amazon wish list and feeling very satisfied that I had remembered what this bloody book was called, I then came on NetGalley to request as an audiobook, and I did that. Long story short. Again, I am going to try and not spoil this one because it is obviously a new release. This one's actually getting released on the 23rd of August this month. I am definitely going to pre-order it. So we have, as it says on the cover, Secret Society of Witches, which is great. And it's set in Britain, which I was buzzing about because I feel like most witchy books are set in America or elsewhere. It's rare that we get a really good British witch story that isn't historical fiction. So I was like, yes, come through for the British witch rep. That, you know, marginalised community. And I was just buzzing about it. We have our main character, Mika, and she is a witch. She's part of this secret society, and she's a wee bit a rebel. A lot of the other witches in this society are very like, you can't do this and you can't do that and we can't get caught, and if you do that we'll get caught and you'll put us in danger and blah blah blah. And Mika is very much like a, calm down lads, like it's not that serious, it's alright. And she actually posts social media content being like, yo, I'm a witch and this is my spells and shit. And she's like, it's just like a shtick, like nobody actually believes I'm a witch, it's a character I'm playing, like I'm just making content, people engage with it, it's fine, nobody thinks I'm a witch, calm down ladies. But somebody from the other side of the country has been watching, and they deduce that Mika actually is a witch, and so they contact her and they ask her to come to a house out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the English countryside, and to basically be a live-in nanny slash witch coach to 3 young witch orphans. This book was class. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I really liked Mika as a main character. I found her to be very funny and very charming and lovable, but again doesn't always get everything right and could definitely fall into the lovable fuck up category. But I really like that. I didn't like a character who is pure perfect and there are like no shades of grey or no mistakes to be made. I like a character who makes mistakes because they feel more real and therefore I have a wee bit more of a connection to them. So I loved Mika. I thought that she was a great protagonist in this book. It was phenomenal. What I loved more though were our 3 kids. They were a feckin' delight. They were weird, they were quirky, they were funny, they were all so uniquely them, and I loved them all so much. Like, I feel like I want to be their nanny, and I'm not a fan of kids. So if I like the kids you've written, that is a credit to you, because I didn't do bairns. But I liked these bairns. They were adorable in the most brutal way sometimes. So Mika has to come in and basically teach them how magic works and, you know, how to control and utilise their powers. Now I am not going to say much more than that plot wise, apart from maybe one wee spoiler as to why it was a 4-star and no a 5, but we'll get there. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My favourite thing about this entire book was the girls' relationship with each other. They were also different, like polar opposites to each other, but they were like so ride or die for each other. They had an absolutely amazing relationship with each other, and they were sisters through and through, even if it wasn't by blood. And then I really loved how Mika came into that dynamic, and how, you know, they weren't just 100% accepting of her, and they were concerned, you know, about her getting involved and what that would mean, and they were a wee bit cautious before she sort of won them over, and you know, they brought her into their trust, and I just really loved it. The book got me quite emotional at a couple of different points. There were no tears, but there was definitely like wee lumps in the throat at parts, especially when the kids were being really cute to Mika, and I just loved like that whole dynamic and that whole relationship. Like the four of them together was just everything I needed, and this book was giving me House in the Cerulean Sea vibes. No quite as phenomenal as TJ Klune does, but definitely similar vibes and feels, and I just enjoyed that, and I've seen that other people in reviews have also said similar. I don't know if it's just because it's like an outsider coming into like this group of orphan kids. I didn't know what was particularly giving me the feelings. It was definitely written like a bit more cosy, which leans a wee bit more into TJ Klune's writing style, and maybe again just because, like I was saying, it was sort of similar themes with somebody else coming in to help look after and nurture these orphan kids that are maybe shunned a wee bit by society. I was getting the vibes, and I really did enjoy that. Where the book fell down for me, and okay, this is going to be a spoiler, so no quite spoiler free. If you didn't want to hear what I didn't like, or if you're planning to read this book, click away when the spoiler warning goes. I didn't really like the romance in this book at all, to be honest. I feel like as soon as your love interest was on the page, I knew he was the love interest right for the get-go, because he was your typical grumpy guy, like, I didn't want Mika to come here, like, oh, I'm so not interested, which does me harm than good, like, and just like so averse to change, so averse to her, that like you knew 20 minutes after seeing her he was going to be madly in love, like, and it's been so done, like, and I could just 1000% tell where it was going to go before it even happened, which is just dull, like, and a bit lazy writing, I feel. So the romance wasn't a surprise. And then there was a couple of scenes in here, like, it wasn't smutty by any means, don't get me wrong, like, it was nae Miss Sarah J Maas up in this book. However, like, I do feel like it got a bit steamy and leaning towards a tiny wee bit smutty at points, which I felt like was a weird parallel to the very cute, cosy feel in Mika having a relationship with these kids, and, you know, all like the nice, happy, flowery, cute stuff, to then jump into her being like, I want to bang you, silly. Just was odd to me, and so it was a wee bit jarring, and it sort of pulled me out of the cute wee coziness bits that I was enjoying, and I didn't really ship their romance at all, to be honest. Maybe if I shipped it, like, I would have enjoyed it a wee bit more, but I just didn't. And it just felt like a weird juxtaposition. It felt like two contrasting ideas that didn't really merge well together. I didn't like it. Wasn't for me. So the book was a 4-star for me, and it was still a really good read. I am still going to buy a copy of this book when it is released, because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the UK cover is beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.